always give the example of the movie Matrix. I don't know how many have seen this here. Right? When you're in the Matrix, right? You can't tell you're in it. You're so lost in it. But actually, you're just plugged in. How are we different today?
It's like a metaphor for Maya.
Exactly. Yeah. But like, how are we any different if we just plugged in? We just don't see the thing in the back of our head. But in front of our screen, it's there.
Right.
Huh?
Yeah, no, it's right.
Right? It's not hooked here, but it's hooked here. All day, we just hooked in. It's dulling our intelligence. Important it is to kind of openly accept good or bad, whatever you're feeling. And like if we try to just kind of keep a happy face all the time. Entertainment is quite a nuisance in our life, actually. Because of entertainment, we think we should always be happy and we should always be like, life's moving on. And we're so desensitized to the idea of people have lives, people struggle. Like, how often do you hear about people struggling? You mostly hear about people doing great things, going vacation, going these places. You don't really hear about and we don't have joint families anywhere. We don't no more live with our aunts and uncles and moms and dads and grandmoms, right? So you don't have any family experience to kind of like count on and see, yeah, my grandmom's, she's fine. She's old, her body's there, but she's fine. She's loved, she's cared for, right? I always say that when we kind of erase the elderly population, we actually rid ourselves of so much wealth because they are telling us by their very being that it's okay. But we gotta hide them away or kind of like not want to have to deal with it, and then we're constantly afraid that we're gonna fall into that oblivion of non-existence because we have created such an impersonal society. We just, care about productivity, appearance, externality, and going places, doing things. So yeah, your example is really good. Life is going on, and I'm here, and yeah, it just made me think. Anybody else who's felt that before, or any flavor of it before?
I have another experience.
Yeah.
In the past 2 years, I've been in treatment. So just being stuck there was a constant reminder that my life was not where I wanted it to be. And ultimately, I do think that it was where life needed me to go. And I think that's where I find my peace, is knowing that there is a plan and that I've just got to follow the clues.
You bring another very important angle, the angle of peace. Very important. Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavad Gita, is Ashantasya Kuto Sukham. Krishna explains, Ashantasya, one who's not peaceful, Kuto Sukham, cannot be happy. Peacefulness is the basis of happiness. But how are you going to be peaceful? You're always wanting things. You're always made to believe that you need to get things, right? People are getting things and I'm here and I'm not achieving it. So how do you find happiness? Like, how do you find peace? How do you find peace?
It's just sitting still.
Sitting still. What else?
I find peace just by enjoying nature.
Nature.
Just driving over here, rolling down my windows, listening to the leaves rustle in the wind.
Nature. Sitting still. What else?
I like writing.
Writing.
Writing my thoughts.
What else?
Music.
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 Mm.
What else?
Oh, within. I like sitting in like silence.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one thing. Like you said, sitting still, sitting in silence. Just pick on one. I could pick on everyone, but I'm just picking on that. How long does that last before you get up and do something?
I believe that more than that is accepting who you
What do you
are.
think? I think
It's
about
accepting who you are.
accepting who you are. And how do you do that?
Because sometimes we just follow, like, I would say, like social media or somebody else's dreams, and we just want to do their dreams. But, we have different paths in life, and we just think that wrong because we cannot reach that with our own happy. But I guess that's like a mature level that you need to get in there, that you need to be content with what you do or who you are, without seeing everybody else.
Another example, right? Like accept yourself for who you are. what else? You were gonna say something, Tamara?
No, you asked.
No, I was picking on what you said. I was saying, so say this example of sitting still, being peaceful. Then what happens after some time? We get up, right? So that getting up gives you a clue that if sitting still was supremely peaceful, you would never get up. So something stirs in your heart that you get up. Maybe you feel thirsty. Maybe you feel hungry. Maybe you think about someone and you want to talk to them. Something happens, right? Something moves in your heart that you want to go and do something else. And I just want to draw your attention to that there is such a thing as desire. And it moves us forward. And we may not know, we may get tired of trying to achieve our desires and failing at them again and again. Then we're just like fed up, we want stillness and just nothing for some time because we've tried so hard, we're so tired, like you said, life's moving on and I'm still here. Right? So we're so tired, we're just like, okay, I'll just be still. But after you've been still for some time, again those desires stir in your heart. Again you get up and you make another attempt in a fresh way, with a fresh mind and a fresh idea. Right? Maybe it's a change in business strategy, maybe it's a change in model, maybe it's a change in appearance, maybe it's a change in dress, maybe it's a change in friendships, circles, activities, something. But deep down what's going on, the desires have stirred in your heart again, and you want to try it another way. See what happens? In the same way at the time of death, the body is going, just kind of like, okay, I'm going to rest for some time. But the desires are still there in the soul. The mind's still carrying all those ideas that you have. With the end of the body, those ideas don't end. Those desires don't end. So as human beings, as spirit souls, we're not dealing with like some sort of a boredom problem that can be solved by entertainment. Our big problem today as a society, and I can vouch for that, is entertainment. It's such a distraction. We're living distracted life. We're not satisfied because we're distracted. We call it entertainment because that's just the marketing. A marketing term for distraction is entertainment. It doesn't make it entertainment. Like literally tell me, what else does entertainment do other than distract you from what you want to achieve? You're not achieving your dreams because you're watching movies about persons who supposedly have won their dreams. Isn't it true? It's just so true, right? It's just completely sat. You're a marketing expert. What do you think? Am I right? I'm not a marketing expert, but that's just what's going on, right? You're not achieving your dreams because you're watching movies about people who so-called achieved their dreams, and then they look like life is moving on. So there's a knowledge filter in place. We can't see the reality. We're not close enough to anybody. Even within family, it's hard to be vulnerable and kind of share like your weakness. It's very hard to do that, isn't it? And you don't want to be vulnerable for whatever reason. Maybe it's embarrassing. Maybe you're expected to be bold. Maybe you expect more out of you. Whatever. But we think being vulnerable is not a part of being human or something. It's just kind of like very few people you're like that with, right? If at all. I've seen surveys, one second I'll be with you. I've seen surveys where people have said like most Americans probably if you have like one or two people that you can open up to, you're very lucky. That's a very small number. What if something happens to that one or two person? You're pretty much left by yourself. Very scary and kind of delicate position to be in.
I was just talking with my mom today since I've gone to treatment for the past 2 years. I feel like I've learned the ability to open up to strangers. Like I was just telling her today, like I could cry to a stranger about any problem. That's why I'm so grateful for having had gone, because I think that's what is bringing me the most peace, is having unmasked, taken off that social facade. It's so much less exhausting.
This is so nice, right? Like you learned something that now you can share with the world, that you can open up. But it's such a powerful experience to be able to. So good, thank you for sharing that. So maybe someday, everyone can learn. The world will be a bit different. That's what we had in the past. But I often ask that question. We say we want to go back to the village society, the traditional environment, right? The traditional environment was there, but people walked away from it. It's something not to be taken too lightly. We walked away from it because of what? We did have peaceful lives. Like I told a story last time of the boatman who lived by the river, and the rich man came. Remember the story that who was here last time? You were there?
Yeah.
You were there. I'll tell it again because most people weren't there. The rich person, he came and he wanted the boatman to ride him across the river. And the boatman said, okay. And he said, well, the businessman said, what are you doing? Like, with the money you make, you should get another boat. And he said, why do I need another boat? He said, if you have another boat, you'll double your profits, like that. He said, oh, okay. So if I double my profit, then what will I do with that? He said, if you double the profit, you can get more boats. Okay, so what will I do with more boats? You can ride more boats and make 4 times the money. And he said, what would I do with 4 times the money? He said, you have a big yachting company, and you can employ hundreds of people, and you can, make money like this. There's nobody else on this river. And he said, okay, so what will I do with the hundreds of dollars I have? He said, well, you can go relax and just do nothing. He's like, well, that's what I'm doing right now. So I think about the silliness and the truth behind that. It's just like all these complicated things to do what? I often think of this point as like, no matter how hard I work, how much money I make, which is not much, but even if I do, I still can only eat like 2 slices of bread, 1 spoon of butter maybe on it, vegan butter, and maybe 1 potato and some kale. Right? Kale has to be with every meal.
Yeah.
That's all I can eat. And as age goes by, as you become older, you have to reduce your diet. You can't keep eating the way you were when you were 16, you were 20, you were 25. So maybe I'm going to be down to having just some sushi wraps with some kale in it, right? That's it, kale and buckwheat in it. So actually what's going inside of me is very little. So do we really need everything we are trying to collect around us to live? No, we don't need everything. We think we need to maintain. Someone's put in our head the idea that we have to maintain all of this lifestyle. But actually, how much can you intake? I often think about it. Like, just to sleep a few hours a day is such a struggle for most of us. Anyone here ever struggle with just being able to get their night's sleep? Struggle, isn't it? Just to be able to just get 1 night's sleep is such a struggle. So, other than those 2 things, you're eating and sleeping, like what are you really putting inside of yourself? You're out putting so much work all day, but what exactly can you intake? If you actually deeply analyze that, you'll see there's not much you need, right? All those things that you have around you are not so much for the needs of the soul by any means. They're not even for the needs of the body. It's just in your mind there is an idea that we need all this. We need the status. I never forget when I was a little girl, I was living in Calcutta for some time, and I remember riding in my dad's vehicle. So my dad would be in the front with the driver, and I'd be in the back seat. And I remember my nose by the window, and I would look outside the window and I'd see little kids completely naked, no shoes, nothing, just playing in the dirt and on the streets. This is just Calcutta. It's very, very full. And I remember looking at that and going, wow, and looking at their faces, they looked much happier than I was. Even as a little girl, when I was maybe 5 years old, that's when I was there. I was like, what is it that they have? What is it? What is it? What is it? And later on, when I read the Bhagavad, I got a book, a small version of the Bhagavad Gita when I was 7 years old, and in that I read a little story. I couldn't read much. I was 7, right? I was reading stuff, but I read I used to randomly open and read at that time, and I read the King of Heavens, Indra, was cursed, and after being cursed, he was cursed to be a pig and live in a sewage pipe. So he was living as a pig, and he had a pig wife, pig kids, pig friends, and with all his pig association, he was living in a sewage pipe and eating like poop all the time, king of heaven. But then his cursed period was over. He was cursed for a certain time. So chief architect of this universe, Brahma, he came down and he said, okay, time to go back to heaven and you're the king, so let's take you back. And he's like, wait a minute, my pig wife is here and I love her very much. And I have the pig baby and the pig son and the pig dog and the pig this, pig this, pig. I can't leave them and go. And then the next line was explained, this is Maya, the bewildering energy of the Supreme Lord. That you learn, when you're in ignorance, you learn to be happy in whatever conditions of life you're thrown. And this is ignorance, because he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know he's the king of heaven. That's our condition. We're just thinking we are happy, and this is happy, wearing a nice dress is happy, we're having a partner is happy, having this is happy. Whoever said that that's what's happy? Whoever says that you cannot be happy without these things. Atma, Rama, Atma, the one who is, Atma means a soul and Rama means deriving pleasure. So Atma, Rama, one derives, a learned person, a wise person derives pleasure from the soul, from within. This is a very deep point to understand, comes through practice, and it's not a mental adjustment that today onwards I'm going to enjoy pleasure from within. It's not like that. It's a process that goes from, you pick up I recommend people chant on beads, the Hare Krishna mantra, you pick up the beads, you start chanting. So you start, you stay where you are, you start using your tongue, say Onmukhi Jivadu. You start devotional service or service to the Supreme or awareness about the Supreme by not seeing the Supreme, hearing the Supreme. So you start chanting the mantras on the bead and you chant it using your tongue. And as you hear, slowly your heart starts to get cleaned up. So the process goes, sound is the subtlest of the elements and it enters from your ears and goes to your heart and starts to clean it. Clean it of what? That same original problem I talked about, desire. As long as you have desire, no matter you sit still, you be peaceful, after some time, in some way that desire will push you forward. And you'll try and then you'll fail again not because it's a lack on your part, actually it's a lack of knowledge, nothing else. The lack of knowledge is that you think desires can be fulfilled. Bhagavad Gita, one of the first things it will explain is desires by definition material desires cannot be fulfilled. This is the definition of that desire. It's not a lack on your part. And here we are living our entire life thinking I'm left behind, something's lacking, I didn't do the right thing. Like you said, who said that example that, oh, you're saying the American Idol, like this kid's like that, I'll never be like that. You know nothing about their lives. You have no idea about their lives. You don't know what's going, nothing. Material, God's not partial. Supreme Krishna is not partial. The sun rises, right? Gives everyone equal heat. Doesn't say that I'm not going to give you heat, I'm not going to give. But if you choose to stay inside your room, close all the curtains, shut the doors, everything, and just be like in a dark room, is it that the sun's partial? No, it's because you're being adamant that sun doesn't exist and you want to shut every door out. Supreme's not partial. We close our hearts and minds. And the platform for peace, which we were discussing, the real platform for peace is not nature or stillness. The real platform, Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Krishna is the enjoyer of all of our activities. Maheshwaram, he's the master of the entire universe. And he's a lot of everybody. The Supreme Person is supreme to everybody. If I say supreme is for me, not for you, and not for you, and it doesn't, by definition, I'm not saying who the Supreme is, but I'm saying whoever the Supreme is, by definition, that Supreme is for everybody, not just for one person. Does that make sense? It cannot be like I'm supreme for A, but I'm not supreme for B, and I'm supreme for C. So, Bhoktaram Yagyatapsam, Sarvaloka Maheshwara. He's not the master of one person, Sarvaloka, of all planetary systems. Sarvaloka Maheshwara. That is the platform of peace, knowing that everything belongs to Krishna, everything comes from Krishna, and everything is going on by Krishna's will. Now, does that mean you live like a parasite's life? That God's going to take care of it. God's going to take care of it. I'm going to do nothing. No, it doesn't mean that at all, actually. I've been meditating on this point all week, actually. And it's actually helped me a little bit because you can be fearful of what might happen, this, that, and the other. But it kind of got some realization in the heart that actually in this world there's always going to be a fearful situation. There is always going to be something you're scared of. And I'm specifically thinking because in the Bhagavad Gita, ancient book, I'm telling some stories, maybe the names not resonate, but I'm hoping that you all are getting the gist of the story. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's 5 brothers, the Pandavas, and they're fighting 100 brothers, the Kauravas, and the chief of the Pandava brothers, Arjuna, is there, and their mother, Kunti, is there. Their mother is actually an extremely saintly person. Although the Bhagavad Gita is about them, this next book up, the Srimad Bhagavatam, starts from her prayers to Krishna. And one thing she says, Ke vayam nama rupabhyam Pandavi Yadavi Pandava. There's a beautiful verse. She says, what is the value of our beauty, our glory, and all of this, all of our glory, beauty, everything is there because you are looking at us. Oh Krishna, and the day you stop looking at us, none of this will remain. None of this will stay. But why? And then she goes on to explain. She said, yes, there was a big battle. In this battle, 640 million soldiers were wiped out in 80 days. So 640 and 6 zeros, how much is that?
That's 640 million.
Millions? So I said the right number.
Or wait, is it 640?
640 and 6 more zeros. That's
Yeah,
640 million, right?
Yeah.
So 640 million soldiers were wiped out in 8. So all the enemies were wiped out. It'd be nice if someone wipes out all our enemies. It'd be like 2 or 3, but in this case it was 640 million. And they were all wiped out. Okay? So you'd say, okay, now you're safe, right? But Queen Kunti says, no, we're not safe. Although all the kings have been wiped out, their sons and grandsons are alive. And they will avenge. And she says, now we are in even more dangerous situation than before the battle. She's very wise. Because that really made me think, like, if I think so and like Shay is the reason for my fear, or you're the reason for my fear, or like you're the reason for my fear, like if I kind of think like that, and then I think like, oh, someone just deal with these 3 people, I'll be okay, right? Sometimes we think like that. If this person just stopped doing that, or that person stopped doing this, or this company stopped doing that, my problem. No, she says 640 million wiped out. You'll be very proud. Mother, her son's crowned the emperor of the world. She says, not all of this. She's like, that was she's saying. Nothing will remain. Bhagavato darshanam. She's like, when adarshanam, when I can't see you, when we can't see you, everything is good for nothing. Why? Because now we're in an even more dangerous situation, and there's always going to be danger in this world. She understood that point. She was a wise lady. She understood. She's always going to be danger. Then what she says? She says, and then she explains, we fight with valor. She's a queen. She's a mother. She's a mother of a king. She was the wife of an emperor. She was a daughter of a king. She's glorious in every way. And she understands politics. She's a royal lady. She understands politics. She says, I've understood it. She thinks she's seen the whole thing. She's seen the whole game. Her husband was the king of the world. Her son was the king of the world. Her father was a king, not the king of the world. And Krishna is her nephew. Right? So she's like, I've seen it all. There's no safe position in this world. There's always going to be danger. But we fight with valor. They still fought. They're not like, okay, Krishna, you're the Lord. We know you're the supreme person. Now I'm just going to be like, you take care of everything. She's like, no, we fight with valor. So we act with valor. But we depend completely on Krishna. Because understand that the outcome is never in our hands. It's never in our hands. So we always move forward. And this idea that everything's going to be okay one day, I mean, you should really question that idea in your heart. Like, what is your vision of everything's going to be okay? everything is going to be okay, but maybe not the way you think it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay for what? Or what is everything's going to be okay look like? Sometimes there's a problem in our idea of what everything's going to be okay is. So Queen Kunti is bringing that point. She says, we move forward with valor to do what? Fulfill our desires? No. Towards our duty. That means you have to have knowledge of duty. I can say, oh, my duty is to earn money for my family. Is that really my duty? Someone else can say it's my duty to look beautiful. Someone else might say it's my duty to be powerful. Someone else might say everyone's got their idea of duty. We're not talking about these relative ideas of duty that change with age. Like when I was little, my duty was to finish all the candies that were given to me. Anyone ever felt dutiful like that? When you're younger than 10 years of age and you're traveling alone by air, that I had to do because when in boarding school, I had to fly by myself. But you get special benefits because if you're a little kid and you're flying by yourself, then they would take you to the cockpit when I was little, and you get to be the pilot, and the pilot gives you a bag of candy, giant bag of candy.
Bag of cavities.
Yes. I didn't know what cavities were back then. So I felt very dutiful to fit, and I knew like in my boarding school they wouldn't allow any kind of outside food. There was no snacks.
Finish it all.
So it was my duty to finish it all before I got to school. I knew as soon as I got to school, the warden would take it all away. It's like, kids gotta get healthy food, so they were very strict like that. So, but I just, my sense of, I felt dutiful towards not wasting the candies. But would you say that that's the most important duty in my life? At that time, you'd be like, wow, you did your duty well, right? But if I was like now and I acted like that, you'd be like Mangal-Arti. Probably not a good idea, right, Jackie? Why? What changed? I felt that these are relative duties. The idea of which changes with time, place, circumstances. We're not thinking of duty of that kind. We need to inquire about what is our eternal duty. That which doesn't change with time, place, and circumstances. That which doesn't change with choice of religion. That which doesn't change with choice of country, or appearance, or language, or whatever factors, What is that duty that doesn't change with all these factors changing? Or with age, anything. What is it? Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. We have to become God conscious, Krishna conscious. We have to become conscious. Right now, we're living kind of like a distracted, unconscious life. And every once in a while, we see someone's Instagram thing and we're like, oh, I'm missing out. I'm missing out on this. You see what I'm saying? You see the drama of it? It's just a drama. Like, okay, back to watch. What? You see what? Does this happen? Is it just me or is it like anyone else?
It's a cycle.
Huh?
It's a cycle.
It's a cycle. That's a vicious one. And it's sucking our life away. And it's explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam with the rising Ayur Harati, with the rising and the setting of the sun Ayur Harati. Harati means snatches and Ayur means age. Snatches your age with the rising and the setting of the sun. But that does not affect a transcendentalist. Because a transcendentalist's reality is not this body. See, all our life we invest in the bodily consciousness and we think at the moment of death we are going to be all spiritual. How? It's not possible, you see. See, all our life if you're investing in, please give her a good cushion.
I'm okay.
So all our life we're investing in the body and then we think suddenly at the moment of death it's going to like switch to spiritual. How is it going to happen? You can even say that in sickness we can't remember like something like this. So when you're young, when your body is healthy, when you can move around, when you can eat by yourself, you have a choice. And in that choice you have to be like, I'm choosing to be spiritual in these activities right now. I'm choosing to educate about what is spirituality. Is spirituality what feels spiritual? or am I responsible to educate myself on what genuine spirituality is? Like you were speaking about your experience, you were explaining that how you've learned to share this, right? It didn't just drop from the sky, right? You learned it over. It took you 2 years to learn one nice quality, right? So it took so long to learn such a small little thing as vulnerability. Small because, I say small not because it is small, but there can be bigger challenges in life than that, right? There could be bigger challenges like dealing with some deathly disease or something like just making it up. So it takes time. It takes investment of energy. It takes effort. So for learning a material quality, if it takes so much time and energy, how much effort would it take to revive our spiritual consciousness? I always give the example of the movie Matrix. I don't know how many have seen this here, right? When you're in the Matrix, right, you can't tell you're in it. You're so lost in it. But actually you're just plugged in. How are we different today?
It's like a metaphor for Maya.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like, how are we any different if we just plugged in? We just don't see the thing in the back of our head, but in front of our screen it's there.
Right.
Huh?
Yeah, no, it's right.
Right? It's not hooked here, but it's hooked here. All day we just hooked in. It's dulling our intelligence. It's totally dulling our intelligence. And it's not easy to get out of it. We're sitting there and we're judging ourselves in the conscious moment. It's good we're judging ourselves. Life is not left, as long as you have a breath, as long as you're within this body, it's not over yet.
No.
Right.
You have a choice.
Yeah.
Actually, I love telling stories, and I'm telling you all these complicated names, but I hope they make any connection with you. There's a story of a king, an emperor. He was so powerful, Katvanga Maharaj. He was so powerful that the demigods of the heavenly planets, like the kings of heaven, the different persons in charge of different forces of nature, they had to fight the demons, the demigods, and they invited him to come and lead the battle. He was so valorous, so powerful. Actually, you may think so powerful from the earth that you're called to the heavenly planets. There's Star Trek and everything. We'll watch that, but if someone actually explains it, that's fiction. It's not fiction. It's actually, even today, if you go to a museum in South India, you can see there's a armor that was worn by a king during the British rule to fight the British oppression at that time. So you can see that armor, you need 5 to 8 people to lift it. It's still there and was worn by a certain king at that time. I know the king, but I don't know the name. Tipu Sultan, this big king. He wore this big armor. Now you need 8 people to carry it, but he wore it and he fought with it. So people were more powerful in the bygone era. So this king was so powerful. Just because we haven't experienced it or seen it, and most of us are weak. And why most of us are weak? It's not because of anything else. And can you give the Srimad Bhagavatam first canto? Give me one and give one to everybody. We are weak not because of anything else, but irregular habits.